Well, if you're looking at all the rifles in front of me, you're probably thinking that my plan today is to do a review of a rifle scope of some sort, and generally that is correct, except that's coming a little bit later. The first thing I want to talk about is this Leica Geovid Pro AB Plus binocular that I have been testing very, very thoroughly for the last several months. I received it in December of 2024. This is recorded in March of 2025. For the entirety of this time period, this has been easily my primary go-to binocular. And it will probably remain so for a little while, at least, I guess, until I find something better. I'll flat out come out and say it. I've compared it to several different things. I've looked at the majority of what's out there on the market. And excuse me, I do not think that for my purposes, there is anything currently available that is better. There are plenty of reviews of these things. I'm not going to go over the technical specs too much. It's a 10x42 binocular. It is different from everything else. If you'll notice the shape of the body, the prisms that use are different. They're called Perger prisms, Perger. That's an optical scientist at Leica who came up with the design. Technically, it is a form of a Poro prism. What Perger, I'm not sure what the right pronunciation is, prisms do. They allow you to work with a total internal reflection for the most part, and they make it relatively easy to inject the image from an internal display. That last part is kind of a big deal for the LRF equipped binoculars, because up to relatively recently, up to this last generation, last decade or so, if you wanted a laser rangefinder and a binocular, the image quality was clearly compromised compared to the best non-LRF binoculars out there. And it is still kind of correct, right? So Leica Noctivid, for example, sticking with Leica, since I'm talking about Leica, in the same magnification, generally has slightly better image quality than the Geovid, but the difference is sufficiently minor that I'm not really looking for anything else. And given what I do, I'm not a birder, I'm a shooter. I hunt, I do look out at nature, but and I also started shooting competitions, and I generally have been shooting for a long time. So for me, if I can get a good enough image quality with an integrated laser rangefinder, I'm always going to go with that. The technology has been developing quite rapidly. There are some really excellent options out there, but if you want something without obvious blue or greenish tint, without significant compromises to image quality with an integrated ballistic engine, you're still going to kind of lean for now toward the big three, Leica, Zeiss, and Swarovski. No, three are excellent, and if you are looking to spend this kind of money, you should look at all three. I have, and for my eyes, the Geovid Pro, and this is the AB Plus version, is the best solution for what I do. Again, I've looked at Zeiss, I've looked at Swarovski. They are absolutely excellent. My basic problem with the latest generation of Swarovski binoculars, I think they overcorrected the edges. It's not a relaxing image for me, but I know a ton of people who love it. And I can see why. It's technically a wonderful binocular. And Zeiss is also excellent. And which one is going to look better to you really depends on how your eyes perceive things. We'll see a little bit differently. And to a certain degree on sample variation. That having been said, having looked at a reasonable number of different ones, and I know a lot of people that have a lot of binoculars, I will say this, of what I've seen so far of LRF equipped binoculars, so from a pure image quality standpoint, in the sweet spots. So from the several samples of the big three, like Swarovski and Zeiss, in terms of image quality for the sweet spot center, maybe 60-70% of the image, I think Leica takes a crown. I think the color balance is the most pleasing, most natural in many ways. It is slightly more colorful than you see with the naked eye. That's how Leica tunes its optics. But it is very, very close to natural. I see the most detail, and I'm able to see this to carry this ability to resolve detail into lower light than I can with equivalent LRF equipped binoculars from other brands, all other brands that I have seen. Okay, you pay for it. It's not cheap. It's about $3,600 with the the AB Plus version. And what the AB Plus version is, well, it is this color, which is unique to this model, and it has already Applied Ballistics Elite engine in it that also gives you the shot probability calculation. Now, for me personally, shot probability analysis is not the most useful thing in the world. But for example, for guides who have clients, shot probability analysis is actually a very nice tool when they're looking at an animal and trying to decide if they should tell their client to shoot or not. For me, it's a curiosity, but it's not generally a huge deal. When I hunt, I limit the shots I'm willing to take to much closer than the shot probability analysis would suggest. And when I shoot at plates trained for competitions or shoot in a competition, it's not like I have a choice. Take a shot, don't take the shot. There is no real downside to taking a shot, as long as it gives you a ballistic solution. Okay. The way this thing works, because has an applied ballistics chip in there, it supposedly works with everything else in the applied ballistics ecosystem. And I started using it with the Leica app, which actually works very, very nicely. Then I switched to the AB Quantum app that also communicates with it, and that gives me um, somewhat more feature-rich screen. But one of the interesting things you can do if you are running it with the Leica app, if you set up, for example, right now I have this tripod adapter on this. If you're running it with the Leica app, you can trigger the measurement from the Leica app without touching the binocular. For example, for the longer range stuff, if you really lined up on this thing and you want to make sure you don't disturb the binocular by pressing the button, being able to trigger activate it remotely from the app is a useful feature. And I've used that a fair bit. For example, uh, for some of the shooting that I've done in the past, I would set up the binocular on the tripod, then I'm gonna point it where I need it to be, go prone, and occasionally trigger the remeasurement just to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. So to remind myself the ballistic solution, make sure I'm not missing anything, and things like that. But again, it probably has limited usability, but still works. At any given time, the Geovid Pro will have only one profile loaded. There are varying opinions on this. I have a bunch of other LRF devices that can support multiple profiles. You can choose on the device. I can probably go either way, but for my purposes, I kind of like that. For example, going to a match in the morning, I'm going to turn on my phone, check the weather conditions, connect to the binocular, get it all loaded up, and then as I am shooting, I will occasionally check it, but basically I don't want to be worried whether I've got the right profile called up or not. But on the other hand, like right now I have three guns in front of me. If I wanted to just load up three profiles, switch between them, that would have been perhaps the next thing. But as is, I'm pretty happy with what I see. The ballistic solution so far has been very accurate, given that I provide correct inputs. The app, both like app and AB Quantum, can pull data either from the internet or from a remote weather station, or you can enter density altitude manually. I usually try to run off of density altitude rather than worry too much about the numbers, but it does display everything. If you connect to the Kestrel, and I do have a Kestrel with a AB chip, so it connects it when you connect to the Kestrel, all this thing does, so it will override whatever is currently loaded in the binocular. If you connect to the Kestrel, it will send the distance to the Kestrel. Kestrel will take the environmentals, calculate a solution, and send it back to the binocular. If it is disconnected from the Kestrel, it will revert back to what was saved in the binocular, which again, for my purposes, this arrangement works very nicely. In terms of ergonomics, again, ergonomics are different for everyone, and I like the ergonomics. This fits my hands very, very well, better than just the straight barrels of common roof prism binoculars, but it's a relatively subtle difference. As far as size goes, it's a little bit longer than normal 10 by 42 binos, but I didn't find it at all unwieldy, so it works uh, pretty nicely. It's about the same size as common binoculars with eptonic prisms, but a little bit longer than the one with the Schmidt-Pecan prisms. Complaints. I have very minor complaints. So the way it displays the laser range finding information, it basically flips through screens. It's a little bit better set up for hunters than competition shooters, but honestly, even from a competition standpoint, it works quite nicely for me. The when you laser it, first it gives you the distance, then the screen flips. Instead of the distance, you see your holdover. Then it flips and you see your wind if you know measured wind, etc. And then the fourth screen is the shot probability and basically cycles through them. But that takes time, right? For competition, people generally prefer to have a more feature-rich screen to see it all in one snapshot. I have a suspicion that Leica is probably gonna do that upgrade at some point. I know they have a monocular rangefinder coming up that uses what they call a new matrix screen that will do all of that. I assume it's gonna at some point be upgraded into this one, but I have to admit that it didn't slow me down too much. For competition, yeah, probably single feature each screen is better. But honestly, I have a hard time finding targets. I started shooting an RL Hunter. And what I usually do, I laser it, and while it's going through the screens, I kind of note of the numbers, and I'm trying to figure out the landmarks and what I'm looking at. I have to remeasure it again anyway, just to be sure I'm lasing the right thing. So the fact that it cycles through screens is not my biggest problem. But if you're one of the top shooters who is, actually on time with everything, I time out on everything for other reasons because it takes me forever to find the plates. Yeah, it probably makes a difference. Again, for me, that's not really a detriment. And then one other comment I can have is, so the aiming point is basically a donut. I try to take a picture through the binocular, try to take a video, but because all these screens, they pulse, it goes out of sync with the camera frame rate, so it's kind of difficult it's kind of difficult to take a good video. I'll see if I can get a few screenshots. I would have preferred the aiming point that's either a little bit smaller or not just a circle, maybe about the center. The way it is supposed to be set up is that there is a circle aiming point, and the laser spot is horizontally elongated. It goes in the middle of it, and that's the range of the circle. So the inner diameter of the circle is going to be 1.8 milliradian, which is the horizontal divergence of the laser. Vertical divergence is smaller, but 0.8 or 1, something like that. You can see that in the spec table. It has not given me any trouble, but when in a rush, it would be nice to have something in the center to point with. Because if I just get something in a circle and it's not quite perfectly lined up, I can be a little bit off. Still, again, this is a very minor complaint, and given how much use I've been getting out of this thing, I'd say these complaints are of the nitpicking nature more than anything else. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to continue using this thing. I've got a few matches coming up. Unless all of a sudden I see something better, I have no intention of switching. For pure competition use, maybe a 12 power would be better, but I'm not 100% certain. For hunting, even here out west, this is enough magnification, especially given how wonderful the image quality is. So I'm going to be using this for hunting and for competition and general observation and everything else. Since this thing got here, it has become my primary binocular. If I were to think about a different configuration, I would have maybe kept it at 10 power and bumped the objectives up to 48 or 50 millimeters for a general purpose, 10 power binocular. Outside of that, from an optical and mechanical standpoint, I've got no complaints. The focus is repeatable. There is no hysteresis. The feel is just excellent. There are only two buttons. One takes into setup, one turns it on and ranges. They are easy to use. I put this thing through sandy, dirty, dusty, windy, sandstormy hell, and everything works. These eye cups, because of all the grit in there, got slightly stiffer, but they work without any real issues. And the way my face is shaped, I just keep them extended. The outer position is what works for me. There are several intermediate ones before I think total. That's that. I think it's a wonderful binocular. If you're looking for the best that is currently available in terms of a binocular with an integrated laser rangefinder, I think the Geovid Pro AB Plus is it. I've seen things that are close, but I've seen nothing. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. If you have any other questions, you know where to find me. The best way to come in contact and ask me questions is through my website. That is www.optics.